what I need to do is, first of all, I need to go for understanding the BAPI functionality. What is input, what is output? First, you need to understand that functionality. So let me open that once in SE37. So I'm going to SE37 here. You can see I'm just trying to understand what is the input for this BAPI and what is the output for this BAPI. So I'm going to use BAPI flight get list. BAPI flight get list. Just let me open that, and I want to understand what is input, what is output, and what is its behavior. So you can see under a BAPI there is a airline. Airline is one of the input parameter here, but it is optional. Airline is one of the input parameter and it is optional. And you can see destination from, destination to, max rows. So all these are optional parameters here. All these are optional parameters. So, and you can see there is a tables option. There is a tables option, and under tables option you can see flight list. And this flight list is going to display list of flight records or list of flights. It is going to display list of flights, but you can see the output parameter is the main output parameter of this BAPI is flight list, and it is having BAPI SFL DAT structure. Flight in output parameter of this BAPI containing a structure as BAPI SFL DAT. And you can see, let me try to execute once. I'm trying to press F8. So you can see airline, if I provide, for example, AA, if I provide airline AA, then when you execute here, you can see there are 29 records that are coming to flight list. So when I provide some input with airline AA, it is providing flight list with 29 records here. It is displaying flight list with 29 records. Similarly, you can see these are the records now. We are able to get American Airlines from so-and-so destination, so-and-so source, city from city to etc., etc. And you can see here, if I provide something like SQ, Singapore Airlines. So when I execute, you can see there are 56 records coming to flight list here. You can see that here. Airline SQ flight list is displaying 56 records here. So that means these are the records. Singapore Airlines from city from, then city to, price, etc., etc. And similarly, you can see, for example, LH or DL, Delta Airlines. So you can see there are 42 records coming to flight list here. Delta Airlines. So BAPI contains a functionality. If you provide some input, it gives some output. And don't forget, input is optional for this BAPI. Don't forget, input is optional for this BAPI. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to provide blank input. I'm providing blank input, and when I execute, we can see there are 390 records here coming to flight list. 390 records that are coming to flight list if the input is optional or if the input is blank. You can see all those records. So now I want to utilize this BAPI and say, for example, I want to develop a UI5 or a Fiori application. So before developing UI5 or a Fiori screen, you need to develop OData ABAP service. So let me give some requirement here. Something like in front end SAP UI5, or it can be Fiori or any other technology. Non-SAP technology. It can be non-SAP also here. The respective developers will do that. So say for example, as of now, when I click on Get Data button in the front end, I want to display the records in a table which will display list of flights. If I click on Get Data button, for example, I should display the list of flight records in front end after triggering Get Data button. So the scenario may be like this. So the screen can be like this. So how to pass the input, we are going to understand in a different example. Okay. As of now, think that we should get the data by executing OData service. So to complete this requirement, what we can do is here as a ABAPer, you can develop one OData ABAP service. As an ABAPer, you can develop OData ABAP service, and you can call a BAPI flight get list. You can call BAPI flight get list, and BAPI flight get list, after executing that functionality, it will provide your records by using flight list. So this is our OData ABAP service. When I click on a button, it will execute some BAPI here. It will execute some BAPI, and your flight list will be provided to the front end as output. It can look like this. So I mean to say, there will be some HTTP request here from the front end, and the response can be HTTP response. So overall, it should look like this. But in today's class, what we are going to do? In today's class, we are not going to develop a front-end screen. This front-end screen we are going to develop in the coming classes. In today's class, what we are going to do is we are just going to develop OData service, and we are going to verify whether we are able to send the records or not. We are going to develop OData service, and we are going to test that OData service, and we will check whether records are retrieved or not. But after few classes, after 2 weeks, we are going to develop UI5 Fiori screens. So please notice that. So the requirement can be like this. Let me write a note here. So first of all, step 1, you have to create. Step 1 is analyze the BAPI first. Analyze the BAPI input or input and output, all those things you can analyze. You can analyze the BAPI input and output and its behavior. That is what you need to do as a developer. you should understand the main theme of that BAPI functionality. After that, you can use step 2. In step 2, just create a OData ABAP project, with all default settings, with some description and all those things. So let me do that. So I'm just going to SCGW here. In SCGWT code, just create a OData ABAP project with default settings. So let me go to this SCGW, and you can see there is a create symbol, and you can provide some project like 9 p.m. BAPI OData project, something like that. You can give some name. And just save in real time, save it in package so that you can transport these things to development, from development to quality, then quality to test, quality to production. So always save it in a package. But to save the time, I just directly go for local option, but in real time, save it in package. So most of the people are from SAP background, so I hope you understand what is package. So now there are 4 folders created here. Data model, implementation, runtime artifact, service maintenance. Now step 3. Create entity type, entity set with DDIC structure. In our case, I'm using BAPI SFLDAT as a structure. For output fields, I'm using this structure. I came to know this structure from SE37. From SE37, I came to know BAPI output fields are from BAPI SFLDAT structure. So I'm using that now. Then, but how to do this? Let me give in detail steps. So you can right click data model. Okay, hello students, can one of you confirm whether everything is fine or not? Because sometimes some problem may occur. Okay, what about others? Is everything fine?
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Okay, yeah. Then, so you can see under data model, you can right click here and you can import DDIC structure for creating entity type and entity set. You can right click data model, import DDIC structure for creating entity type and entity set. So you can provide some entity type as, for example, flight. And DDIC structure, that is nothing but ABAP structure, I'm using BAPI SFLDAT. BAPI SFLDAT, and you select this entity set checkbox also. So it will create entity type and entity set both in a single shot. Both we are creating here, entity type and entity set, by taking the fields from this BAPI structure. So I mean to say, right click data model, then import DDIC structure equal to something like, okay, import DDIC structure. You can use that option and provide entity type equal to, for example, flight. Provide ABAP DDIC structure equal to something like BAPI SFLDAT and choose entity set checkbox. Then click on continue. So that is what we need to do to create entity type and entity set. So every day in the next 2 weeks, we are going to do this third step as a very common step. Entity type creation, entity set creation. So now you can just click on next here. So what happens is you will get all the fields here. Something like from the BAPI structure, you'll get all the fields here, like airline ID, airline, connect ID, flight date, airport from, city to, departure time, arrival date, price, currency, etc. So these are the fields coming from the structure which I specified. So what you can do is you can choose the required fields here. You need not select all the fields. Whatever is important to you in the output screen, those fields you can select here. You can select some important fields here. Randomly you can select, or you can select whatever fields you want. Got the point? Whatever. So after doing this, what you can do is just click on continue. And as I told you, while creating entities type, one of the field must be key field. So I'm selecting airline ID as a key field. I'm selecting airline ID as a key field. So you can select that. And you can click on finish here. And you can see now, don't worry about these restrictions and all those things. Just you can see entity type, entity set, both are created, and entity type contains the required fields. You'll get these things. So the fields of ABAP has some X data type, but don't expect same data type in OData. OData has its own equivalent data types. OData services will have its own data types with starting with EDM dot. So please notice that for ABAP data types in OData, there are equivalent data types, so it will automatically take while creating entity type. So you can save it now. You can save it. Let me write that in your notes, like choose required fields and select one of the field as key field. In our case, okay, you can choose whatever you want. Whichever field you want as key field, select that. Then you can save it. You can save that. Now, after saving, what we need to do is we need to understand one very basic point. You can see under service implementation, for our entity set, 5 CRUD methods are available here. For our entity set, 5 CRUD methods are available: create, delete, get entity set, and update. Create, delete, get entity set, then update. So now let me give one important point here. Let me write it as a note. So you can see now, when we use BAPI in OData, ABAP services, there are 2 ways of doing it. There are two ways of doing it. There are two ways of doing it here. One is like with mapping. With mapping is one of the technique. I can call this as technique 1. And the second one is without mapping. You can assume that it is like technique 2. So in technique 1, at OData level, we can't apply any conditions. But in technique 2, we can write the code whatever we want. We can use additional code. Okay, that you will understand. The differences you will understand only when I complete the two techniques. At present, don't worry about the differences. But what I mean to say is, when you are using a BAPI in OData services, there are two ways of doing it. One is with mapping, another is without mapping. So one is with mapping and another is without mapping. So in today's class, what we are going to do is with mapping. In the next class, we'll do it without mapping. After that, you will understand what exactly is the difference. So at present, with mapping is the technique I'm using. So in the heading, I'm writing with mapping so that you can recognize. I've updated that main heading with mapping. So how to do this? If you are using with mapping, then it's very simple. Just go to the service implementation and you can right click get entity set method. You can right click get entity set option and you can choose map to data source here. There's an option like map to data source. You can select this option and you can see I'm interested in remote function call because BAPI is like in remote function call and I want to maintain mapping with BAPI flight get list. I want to maintain mapping with BAPI flight get list, so let me select that. And you can just click on continue. So now you will get mapping symbol here and you will get two options, left and right. You can see that. So you'll get two options here. And just observe this particular diagram. But first, let me write here. Go to service implementation. Go to service implementation, then right click, get entity set method and choose map to data source. Choose map to data source. So that means we are going with technique 1, that is with mapping. So we are applying mapping technique here. When you choose map to data source, that means we are proceeding with mapping technique. So let me do that. So when you do like that, it opens some screen. Let me continue that here. Choose remote function call and provide the BAPI name with which you want to maintain mapping. Provide BAPI name with which you want to maintain mapping, BAPI flight get list. I want to maintain mapping with BAPI flight get list, so you will get this screen after doing that. You'll get this screen. Now in this screen, you need to understand one basic point. So you can see now, this is the screen opened when I go for map to data source with BAPI, and you can see here, these are the fields. These are the fields of our entity set, because entity set will gather the fields from entity type. Entity set will gather the fields from entity type. So now we are able to get those fields inside entity set. So let me write a simple option here, fields of entity set now, but gathered from entity type, but gathered from entity type. So I mean to say this is an entity set here. Left hand side is an entity set. That means this is an entity set related fields now. And you can see right side there is a flight list here. Right side there is a flight list, and that belongs to a BAPI flight get list. Right side you can see BAPI flight get list, and flight list is one of the output option of this BAPI flight get list. You can see that. Now what you need to do is, so you need to maintain mapping between your output fields here. These are the output fields of a BAPI. Let me write that here. That is flight list. When you execute a BAPI, you know that flight list gets the records. As I told you in SE37, when you execute a BAPI, the records will come to flight list. That is the output parameter. So as a developer, what you can do is you can maintain mapping between these things. Airline ID to airline ID, then airline, then connect ID. So you can maintain a mapping here. Airport from, and you can see city from, and airport to, and city to, and then price, whatever fields you want, you can select them, and then currency. So once BAPI is executed, the records will come to our OData service entity set. BAPI output fields we are mapping with entity set of OData service. So we have to maintain a mapping now. So this type of mapping we have to maintain. So maintain mapping between BAPI output and OData service entity set. Output is nothing but flight list here. Remember that? So this is what we need to do. You have to maintain mapping between BAPI output flight list and OData entity set. So to do that, what we can do is, it's very simple. You can select this airline ID of flight list here. You can drag drop and place it here under data source. When you drag drop, you'll get some output mapping. Similarly, airline, you can drag drop. So whichever fields you are expecting in the output in OData, those fields you can maintain mapping. So that is what you need to take care. City from airport to, then city to, then price, then currency. So you're getting some output fields mapping here. Just you can drag drop from BAPI to entity set. So you can get like this. And you can save it now. So let me write that here. Maintain mapping between BAPI output flight list and OData service entity set. OData service entity set. That is nothing but flight set is our entity set in OData level. Maintain mapping between BAPI output flight list and OData service entity set. Entity set is flight set. So what you need to do now, that is what you need to do. Just you need to use drag and drop option. You can do mapping with drag and drop. So you can easily understand with this statement now. So after doing this, you can save it now. And then what you need to do is you need to generate runtime objects here. You have to generate runtime objects here. You have to generate runtime objects. So that means what happens is, according to the mapping what we have maintained and according to the metadata what we have used in our OData service, based on that, the code is auto-generated in runtime artifacts. Runtime artifacts will be created, and the code inside those runtime artifacts also will be auto-generated according to the mapping what we have done and according to the metadata which we have used in entity type and entity set. So when you are using mapping, you need not worry, the code gets auto-generated. So I mean to say, when you click on generate runtime objects, when you click on runtime objects, I can say automatically runtime artifacts are generated, and most importantly, automatically code inside runtime artifacts is generated. Automatically code inside runtime artifacts is generated according to the mapping which we maintain and according to the metadata. So according to that, it will generate everything. We have taken metadata. Metadata means we have taken some fields in entity type and we are using in entity set. And we have also maintained a mapping. So according to these two things, the code gets auto-generated in runtime artifacts. If you are not using mapping, then we have to write the code explicitly. If you are not using mapping technique, then we have to write the code explicitly. That is the point. And we can apply some conditions and we can write whatever code we want. But here in mapping, the code gets auto-generated. So let me do that. You can save and click on runtime objects here. When you click on runtime objects, you can see MPC extension, MPC, DPC extension, DPC, model, service, they're all generated. Every day this will be used, no need to worry much. Just click on continue and save it in package. generate, click on continue, save it in package. So because of that, now you can see runtime objects are generated. They are nothing but the classes here. You can see here. You can see under MPC class, let me just go to MPC class. Under MPC class, you can see define flight, that is auto generated. And you can see under types, table structure for flight, table type for flight, that is also auto generated. Table structure for flight, table type for flight, so that is auto generated by taking BAPI SFL DAT. You can see that. Don't modify this code, just to make you understand, I opened this code. And it is internally referring to BAPI SFL DAT. And you can see now, not only that, you can see under DPC class, whatever SAP want to generate, the coding is generated in DPC class. Whatever the code you want to write as a developer, you have to write in DPC extension class. But whatever, don't worry much about that. But as of now, you can see under get entity set method, some piece of code is auto generated here. Some piece of code is auto generated. And most importantly, the only thing that you need to know is, you can see it is internally referring to a BAPI flight get list here. So we are calling a remote function call. That is nothing but a BAPI. So that code is generated automatically. So the code is auto generated by SAP. That means that code is generated by framework, and it is internally triggering BAPI flight get list because we maintained in mapping. We maintained in mapping, so according to that, it is generated here. So don't think beyond this. As of now, just remember this note. Automatically, code inside runtime artifacts is generated according to the mapping what we have done and according to the fields which we have taken in entity type. So step 6. Step 6, you can go to service maintenance, and under service maintenance, you need to click on register service here. Under service maintenance, you can click on register service option. It's a routine process. Now, let me do that. Click on register service. Just click on that. And when you're registering the service, just save it as a local option here. Just save it as a local option here. And in real time, you save it in a package. Don't forget to save it in package, but I'm saving it locally. And then continue. Click on continue. Then step 7, test the service. So to test the service, you need to go to gateway client. To test the service, you need to go to gateway client. So you can see now there is an option, gateway client option here. You can see that. Click on that. It will open one separate screen. It will open one separate screen here. So in today's class, we are fetching the data. So you have to use get operation. In today's class, we are just trying to fetch the data. So you can use get operation for testing the service. But you can see there is an entity set option here. When you execute a BAPI or when you execute OData service, the records will come to entity set. When you execute OData service, the records will come to OData. Sorry. When you execute OData service, the records will come to entity set. But what is our entity set? You can select here. You can choose your flight set because this is the entity set I've taken. You can see now there is a flight set now. Flight set, that is our entity set. So now I can say when you try to execute here, when you try to execute, you can see if everything goes right, then you should get your output records with status code 200. You'll get your output records with status code 200, and while testing, you will get the data in XML format. You can see this is the first record with American Airlines. City from New York City to San Francisco, price 422, currency US dollars. This is one of the record. So while testing, definitely our gateway server will respond in XML format. I told you in the very beginning of our previous classes. So not only that, you can see there are several records that we are able to get it. You can see now. Airline ID DL is Delta Airlines, New York to Frankfurt, and 611 is the price. And similarly, there are several other records with Japan Airlines with Tokyo to Frankfurt. So that means our records are, the records are displayed format here. And see something, Lufthansa, New York to Frankfurt, something like that. And you can see Singapore Airlines, Singapore to San Francisco. So we are able to get the record, but we are able to get the records in XML format. So whenever you send a request to gateway, or you can display data, something like in a graph, or we can display some data something like in row repeater. These are screen elements which will be very interesting when we go for front end, and we can also display data in something like a drop-down checkbox, radio button, whatever. Checkbox, etc., etc. There are several things. So that is what is going to happen when we design the screens. So consuming OData service will take place in the front end, UI5 or Fiori or any non-SAP front end also, they can use it. Very rarely they use non-SAP front end, but there is a facility. Non-SAP front end is also possible. But very rarely, in rare situations, we get that non-SAP front end. Mostly it will be UI5 or Fiori. So what I mean to say is, when you are executing a service, here, we are able to get record by record in XML format. But we don't show the data. We don't show that XML data as it is to the user. We are going to show the same data. We are going to display the same data by using a table or a graph or a row repeater or any other screen element, whichever is suitable. So that is at screen level. We are going to display the records in different screen elements. So the next 2 weeks, what we are going to do is we are just going to develop this OData service only. After 2 weeks, from 3rd week onwards, we are going to concentrate on the front end part. So please notice that. So for your imagination, please don't forget this overall diagram. This is how overall end-to-end implementation will take place. Develop OData, develop the screens in front end, and you can send or receive the data between these two things. So as of now, this OData service is not complete. We are going to consume this OData service in the front end for screen designing. At that level, the application looks complete. But as of now, what we have done is just we have created OData service, and we are able to test that OData service, and it is able to get the records by default in XML format. So I mean to say, test the OData service, choose your entity set, that is equal to flight set is our entity set, and provide below URL, below service URL, and provide below service URL. That means this one. And the last parameter is our entity set. Don't forget that. There are few options here. There are few options here. This is the path of our OData services. SAP, OPU, OData, SAP. SAP, OPU, OData, SAP. So in real time also you'll get the same path. Whether it is a custom service or it can be a standard service, but path remains same. SAP, OPU, OData, SAP. That path remains same irrespective of whether it is a custom service or a standard service. In real time also it will be same. And this one, Z9 PM BAPI OData project service. So that is our service name. That is our OData service name. And the last one is our entity set name, which we are using. Provide that URL and execute the service with get operation. That is the point. Then you'll get the records. If you're able to get the records, then your service is successful. If you're not getting the records, then you have to troubleshoot. What went wrong? You have to troubleshoot. But what I mean to say is, when you provide this path, it will fetch. It is to fetch all records here. As of now, and by default, it will fetch records by default in XML format. Notice that point. Is comfort. I'm not exact. You can have easy understandable format, that is JSON format. And I want to see those records in format. Format is to understand while accessing the or while seeing is easy to understand. So what you need to do, you have to use this path. Something like question mark dollar format equal to JSON. Let me try with that. After providing entity set, provide format equal to JSON. Let me try. So you can see question. I want to fetch records with specific fields. Then you can use question mark dollar select equal to something like airline ID, comma, airline, comma, for example, price. I want to see only 3 fields for every record. While executing the service, I want to see the records with only 3 fields, airline ID, airline, price. So this is the format you have to use. This is the format you have to use. Question mark dollar select equal to airline ID, comma, airline, comma, price, comma, etc., etc. So let me try now. You can use like question mark dollar, something like select equal to airline ID, comma, airline, comma, price. Only 3 fields I'm expecting. Then you can see now we are able to get only 3 fields for every record: airline ID, airline, and price. Only 3 fields. For every record, it will be like this: Delta Airlines, DL, and 422. So we are able to get only 3 fields while displaying those records. So as of now, just test the service with these 3 options, 3 to 4 options. In the coming classes, we'll understand some more techniques, some more syntaxes. Okay, as of today, I want to stop here. If you have any doubts, you can ask me now.
Yeah, hi, Vijay, this side. I have a couple of questions.
Vijay,
One second. Yeah, who is this?
Neeraj?
Yeah, Neeraj, yeah. You can proceed now.
Okay, in today's class, we have used BAPI, which is a locally, right? If
Okay.
suppose we want to connect to the backend MM or ECC, so we need to proceed in a different way. I mean, we have to call in some sort of RFC and then call that
You have
BAPI.
to provide RFC destination name. That's it. Instead of local, you can use RFC destination name.
Okay, and providing that we can give the BAPI name there. That which
Exactly.
BAPI we
Yes.
need to call.
Yes. You can provide the BAPI name of our remote server also, if that
Okay,
RFC destination is available.
we can see that example also in coming sessions, right?
It's very simple. What you do is, according to normal ABAP, what we do, we generally create RFC destination in SM59.
Right.
If that is available, then you can use it. Instead of
Okay.
local, just provide that RFC destination name, then you will be able to do it. Procedure wise, there won't be any change except providing RFC destination name.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
If you're
Then
using the option with mapping, then this should go in a sequence. Like first we do the mapping and then we run the runtime artifacts.
exactly, yes.
Okay. Okay.
First
And there is
mapping, then generate runtime classes or runtime artifacts.
all right. All right. And we can have multiple entities set in one OData service.
Yes, why not? Yes, of course, we are going to do that as well. We can have
Right.
any number of entity sets in a single service.
Right. Because while testing,
As a simple example, I'm taking single entity set, but in the coming classes, definitely the entity sets can increase. In single service, we can have multiple entity sets.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And we can have multiple entity types also because if we have different sets.
Yes, definitely. That's what I'm saying. Entity types can be multiple, then definitely entity sets also can be multiple.
Okay, okay. So just I'm just little confused in terms of by thinking that how what is the scenario?
Multiple entity sets we are going to use if there are 2 different functionalities in a single service. I
Okay,
want to get header records and I want to get item records. Then you can create multiple entity sets.
okay, okay.
Header
And
records in one entity set, item records in another entity set. Then in that situation, definitely you require multiple entity sets.
all right, all right. So once
Okay.
we
Yeah.
see the example, so definitely I'll be able to
Yeah,
correlate.
definitely. In the coming classes, you'll get more and more clarity. Yeah.
Okay. And while we have tested this particular service when we have created, it was giving a complete data. So in a way we can reduce. I mean, we can give some input parameter also while testing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. That I'm going to cover mostly in the next class. We are going to provide some input, and based on the input, it will get the data. As of today, just you can see in the very beginning of today's class, I was talking about just clicking get data, then you should get the data. So we are not passing an input here.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
how to pass the input? There is a separate syntax. At right time, I'll introduce that.
All right. So basically, at OData ABAP service, gateway client, when we test that, even at that place also we can give the as input parameter which can give us the desired result.
Exactly. That's what. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me tell you, hello students. Let me tell
Sure.
you, hello students. Let me tell you one basic point. Dharmateja, please try to mute yourself. So let me tell you one basic point. Today's class, we are just getting all the records without any input. But in the coming classes, we are going to provide some input. Based on that, we'll get the output. Okay, that scenario will come into picture. I don't want to make complex in first example, so I made it as simple as possible to understand the very basic functionalities. Okay, and then what about others? Yeah, Shilpa, you can ask now.
Hi, Vijay.
Yeah. Who is this?
This is Venkat Vijay.
Okay.
See,
Shilpa.
when we are testing the service,
Okay.
yeah, when we are testing the service, I mean, we got the output like in XML format, but suppose say like we have I mean, error or something somewhere we did, and we want to troubleshoot, as you said. So how can we do that?
We can do debugging. We can have debugging technique.
So that you will explain in coming classes, or?
Yes, definitely. Why not? Debugging.